What if we made 23 million tiny ponds? Wetlands of all sizes are some of the most biodiverse and rich habitats in our landscapes. If you imagine at the top of this, you've got, vast wetlands expanding from either side of a river that are free to move. Here you'll find beavers creating dams, causing deep ponds, moving the water off and out into adjacent woodlands and open areas. Here you have mammals, large and small, taking refuge and stopping by for a drink. The landscape is booming with amphibians, frog spawners everywhere. The ground is so wet and so boggy that humans would have a hard time getting around, but little invertebrates, they're in their millions throughout these habitats. And everything here is interacting and reacting to one another. So this is big stuff. This is landscape scale wetland recovery. We need this in the UK. We need this more than anything. The bigger the wetland, the better the wetland. We're seeing whole areas sort of given back to the river where it can flow off out into, become naturalized. But in the UK, a country which is heavily dissected, it's heavily urbanized, we need to be realistic and pragmatic about how we can reinstate water throughout the country. Because over the past 500 years in the UK, we've lost something like 90% of our wetlands. And in a global context, something like 87% of all wetlands have been lost. And this is because, well, wetlands just aren't a useful habitat for humans. They're wet, they're boggy, we can't walk through them, we can't live on them, we certainly can't grow crops on them. So we've drained them and we've converted it into land which is more useful to us. And while now more than ever we are seeing more initiatives to reinstate wetlands at a landscape scale, I think that there is a big opportunity which we're not taking, which is to reinstate wetlands on a small scale in our gardens. All right, so why 23 million ponds? Why am I banging on about 23 million ponds? Well, it's all to do with the fact that we have 23 million gardens in this country, and that number's only ever growing. We're building something like 200, 300,000 houses every year. And when I think about that statistic, it fills me with two feelings. One is like a sense of dread that, this land is being converted into concrete and we're losing habitat. And then the other is slightly more optimistic, and it's this idea that there's an opportunity. Now, it doesn't matter if you've got a small garden or a big garden or an apartment balcony on the 15th floor. We can all do our bit for nature. And, I've been called cringe in the past, people saying that, why are you trying to get people to do little bits for nature? But I firmly believe that if everybody did their bit, if all 23 million of us in the UK did this one thing which we're going to talk about, it would make a huge difference. And if you're in any doubt about creating a pond and the benefits that it can have for wildlife, let's just run through that real quick. Even if your pond was this big, it really wouldn't matter, because in a minute we're going to be making a container pond. I've actually got a much bigger version of this over there which I'm going to be using, but if your pond was this big, it's still going to be doing so much for nature, because water is really where all animals come to meet. Whether if you think of the top of the food chain, here in Britain, the best you're going to get is probably badgers and foxes coming by and stopping for a drink. I mean, in some countries, maybe where you are, maybe you're in Europe or North America or something, you might have bears. A bear would be really happy to come by and stop and have a drink and probably just scoop out everything that's living in there and eat it. But birds will come down and they'll have a bath in it, they'll hunt and forage in it. And in times of drought, having just a little bit of standing water is so important for insects. Passing insects, which would be flying by like a bumblebee, they'll stop and have a drink. Maybe you've got some flowering plants growing there too, which will be giving nectar. And think about all of the little invertebrates which are going to be living and depending on the water for that first stage of their life cycles. And then you've got really exciting things like frogs and newts. I tell you, you will be surprised at where frogs just seem to get jiggy with it in the most shallow and most awkward spots. And then they splurt out all of their spawn. It's just really cool to see. So go out and make your container pond, and you'll be surprised at just how quickly frogs will come. That sounded kind of wrong actually, but the truth is that frogs will come quickly. All wildlife will come quickly. When you present a habitat, when you set aside a space for nature and do something like creating a container pond, nature will come. All right, that's enough prattling on about it. Let's go and build one. It all got started this morning when I headed to the garden centre to pick up a few bits. Oops, up you daisy, up you get. We can walk a bit slower. Let's walk a bit slower. Okay, pond plants. Let's look for some nice native ones, Remy. Oh, do we need that? I think we need that. Looks like we're going to get it anyway. Remy's making sure we got some planting baskets. Maybe one of them could be good. Yeah, oh, that looks like fun, doesn't it? We're drifting. That's it. So I just want to run through a few things which you're going to need when you're making your container pond. So first and foremost, you're going to need a container. Here's the one you saw earlier, and here's a plastic bucket, and here's the one which I'm going to be using. I think it's made of aluminium. It's quite a nice size. You know, really, I'm doing this in my mum's garden. This is my childhood garden. This is where I grew up. There's actually quite a few really cool things going on here. We've just had some woodpeckers fledge from the old willows over there. It's really cool. You can see all of the chippings on the floor. So my mum's got 3 or 4 really nice old willows. I think it's crack willow, and they are just full of deadwood. And every year these woodpeckers, they come back. They drilled some holes in them not too long ago. Look, here's an example of some of the holes that's going on. But you'll find that these cavities, they extend all the way up and through. And just up here is where you've got your baby woodpecker. So from the garden centre earlier, I picked up some gravel. I picked up some aquatic soil. Now, you don't necessarily need this. You can just use soil from your garden, but aquatic soil is, you know, it's not as nutrient dense. And it's also quite heavy on the clay, so it's going to be weighed down. It's going to be floating around everywhere. And I also picked up some pond plants. I only picked up 4, I might need a few more. But the main thing I did with these was I just wanted to make sure that they were native and that they didn't need water which was too deep. And then here, you know, I foraged like some old logs. I've got some bricks here which we're going to use to stack up the plants. And since I'm doing this pond in my mum's garden, she requested that I somehow fit Mr. Moley in, so that's going to be fun getting him in there too. So where you put your pond is actually quite important, and where I'm going to put mine is at the base of these green gauge trees. Oh, that's pretty heavy, quite a bit of water in there, but yeah, I'm going to put it in here because in here underneath these green gauge trees you get really nice sort of partial shade, quite sunny. I mean, you wouldn't think it now with the rain, but the green gauge canopy allows some really nice light to come through, but also because you've got this really nice habitat here at the back, which is going to be really useful when we're sort of linking our pond up with the surrounding area. In hindsight, I probably should have got 2 of these because they work really nicely in this shape. It fits it almost perfectly, so that's really satisfying. You're a pretty one, old Jenny. Jenny's a pretty one, creeping Jenny. She might be creepy, but she's pretty. This is my Veronica Becca Bunga. So maybe Veronica and Jenny can live in here together. Okay, I'm just going to top it with a little bit of gravel. I'm just going to push this down and in. This should just keep the soil in place. And that's actually going to provide some nice little niche habitats for anything which wants to go in there. So I'm pretty happy with the position of this. Like I say, it's at the back here where we've got some logs and some wood. It just sort of brings it all together because, you know, you are, at the end of the day, your pond is in a container, so it is kind of isolated from the surrounding habitat. But if you're able to move it into a position where the rim of your container is going to be pretty much meeting, you know, I don't know, maybe a raised bed or a log or something. Here we've actually got like a bit of a swooping branch of this green gauge here, so this is really quite nice. So what I'm doing now is I'm going to get some bricks in, and I'm going to use these bricks to get my plants to the right height. It's looking pretty good. I've got my 2 girls in here. I've got my creeping Jenny and I've got my Veronica, and at the back here I've got an oxygenating plant which is called mare's tail. But I need to add a few more features, and one of them is a rock. I want something which is partially in and partially out. To be honest, that works a treat. What I've just added in here is just a little branch up the top here to be a perch for birds to come and rest on, and I've got my stone in here. All I need to do now is create an access in and out of this pond, and also we can't forget about Mr. Moley. He has to have a spot too. So I just built my little ramp at the back here. I've managed to wedge it into this wood here, and I've just propped it up with stones and bricks. So I think you've got a nice transition in and out now. Plants are in, it's looking good. The only thing left to do now is to get Mr. Moley in place, and I think he can go perfectly here. Look, just tucked in here next to that mushroom. I'm not sure what that is, some kind of saprophytic, but he can look out over the whole scene. One thing I didn't mention was you've got this like bird feeder here which my mum's put out. It's an old hanging basket with some seed in there. So the birds will be coming here for some food, and then they can head over here for a drink and a bath. Imagine if you could drink your own bath water. How great's that? This little fledgling woodpecker is thinking about it. You coming out? Built a nice new pond for you to come and have a bath in. A little drink if you fancy it, mate. You probably haven't had a bath. You've just been living up in that tree the whole of your life. I was going to wait and see if they come out, but in the meantime, thanks so much for watching the video. If you've got a container pond, or if you're inspired to build one, please let me know. Let me know what comes to it. You know, do you get frogs? Do you get newts? Do you get woodpeckers coming down for a little swim? Yeah, that felt really good. It's just fun just to sort of get your hands dirty and do a little bit of something for nature. Thanks for watching. Leave curious.